Terraria is an incredibly open game with all sorts of different ways to play it and progress, though the choices of ways to damage enemies is between 5, now 4 classes: Mage or Magic, Summoner, Ranged, and Melee, which is the topic of this video. Melee in Terraria is confusing to say the least. It's a class that has the highest defense out of every other one and some of the most reliable high damage in the game when you get far into it. So from a non-Terraria player's perspective, since the class is called Melee, you'd think its weakness would be range, but this just flat out isn't the case. Melee weapons throughout the game, to the Ice Blade to the Terra Blade, have many different and powerful projectiles, which destroy the entire point of what's supposed to be a close range, high damage class. In the end, it just becomes a high defense mage with magic weapons that require no mana, busted for no reason. But what if we were to limit ourselves and disallow long range projectiles? You know what this class should be by definition? Well, by doing that, you get one of the most difficult, painful, yet replayable and fun challenges in Terraria. True Melee. The most optimal way to deal with enemies is by keeping your distance, as this ensures your safety. A lot of enemies do most damage via contact, including a lot of bosses such as every mech boss, Plantera, King Slime, Golem, and so many others. Terraria's kind of action encourages you to stay far away from your enemies, especially in higher difficulties where armor matters way less. And this is why the definition of melee is bent, more so broken, in order for its status as hard at the start and OP by the end to persist. And for them to balance the entirety of melee so the class makes sense would take an eternity, though they've already taken steps to do that with weapons like the Knight's Edge rebalance and the True Excalibur rebalance. It's simply expected that going through the game, never shooting a projectile to hurt an enemy would be incredibly difficult, and you will have to deal with enemies in an entirely different way. Plus, not even to mention all sorts of different precise strategies that you'd have to employ in order to survive. Thankfully, True Melee's damage is off the charts, easily some of the highest in the game, so that'll help you a bit. But with no way to attack from afar, something we're all very used to, that high damage is completely balanced whenever you try to play as a True Melee user. Since True Melee is completely different from a normal playthrough of the game, the usage of different accessories, weapons, and skills needed in order to beat a True Melee run are mandatory. Quick moving equipables such as ice skates, if you like building arenas with ice, which I really like to do, can help you flip around your character and hit the enemy better. Slightly off topic, but come on Terraria devs, just make it so our melee weapons always face whichever way our cursor is placed. Or at least just make that an option. Anyway, back to the accessories. Cthulhu's shield, which should be a standard accessory anyway, is an absolute must for a somewhat unorthodox reason: the short dash length. Having a long dash with the True Melee can lead you to getting hit, and that's not what we want. Plus, the extra iframes upon bashing an enemy with a dash helps a lot too, as you can get some more hits in while you're invincible. A bizarre wing option opens up as well, the hoverboard, something no one ever uses. Being able to hover in place for a short bit is extremely helpful for being under a boss and hitting them for extra damage, instead of sporadically jumping up and just getting a few hits off. And something called microspacing becomes important, and I really like microspacing. It's one of my personal draws to the class. With a combined fact that armor probably doesn't matter too much since most people play an expert and most enemies do high damage upon contact with you, spacing to where you can hit the enemy perfectly and not be hit is incredibly important. Especially for bosses which have really fast movement speed usually, and damage because they're bosses. You have to constantly move slightly left to right, always making adjustments and always trying to dodge projectiles, which is freaking awesome. It feels so cool. And all that complicated stuff is just cool to me if I'm keeping it real. Weapons that you will never use will finally be used if you try this run too. One I had in mind were the Blade Tongue, which shoots an ichor projectile upon hitting an enemy. It's kind of questionable if that's True Melee, but I count it because you have to hit the enemy. Brand of Inferno, which lets you block and deal like 500% more damage for a second or two in one hit. You can also switch to another weapon and deal 500% extra damage with that too. And yes, this ability is exactly like Sergeant United's shield, by the way. And the Key Brand, which does more damage depending on how hurt an enemy is. There are also weird options like the Obsidian Swordfish. Amazing stats, by the way: 70 damage and 24% natural critical strike chance. But 1, it's a short spear, defeating the purpose of a spear, and 2, you need a damn hard mode angler quest item to get it: the Hotline Fishing Pole, which is like a 1 in 75 chance after you do 10 angler quests. I freaking hate that guy. Right aside, all these options would be overlooked normally, but with this challenge you can acquire a unique array of totally unused weapons, at least until the end where you just use Psycho Knife for Key Brand. This challenge is mostly hell, but at least it's a fun challenge that'll get you doing things you'd never do. Certainly something to spice up your gameplay a bit, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Plus, some new skills and techniques you develop for True Melee could be applied to other classes if you want. By the way, Bosses in this mode are super fun to fight due to how many risks you have to take. Take Expert Mode Skeletron for example. The only way to truly damage him is while he's spinning towards you, and if he sucks you into his weird spinny vortex black hole attack thing, and if you don't grapple in time, you're as good as done. Plus the time limit of night and when it becomes day will fill you with adrenaline because you can only occasionally hit him. That sort of feeling can only be acquired in normal boss fights. But in true melee, that kind of situation is usual, and the victory is just a bit more satisfying knowing that you beat a boss in a way that felt impossible. I believe that you should try a true melee run in expert mode due to how difficult and unique the challenge is. It'll be unlike any challenge or run in Terraria that you've previously tried, due to it being the only truly close range playthrough of Terraria you could go for, unless you did like tools only or something crazy like that. Anyway, like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on my next video, which will definitely be long and critical and also a bit more like my old content. And if you're here for my PvZ stuff, don't worry, I'll still be making those kind of videos as well.